A poor single father stops to help two stranded twin girls on a lonely road, never imagining that this simple act of kindness will decide his own fate. He has no money, no power, and a court case hanging over his head that could take everything from him. What he doesn't know is that the girl's father is the very judge who will soon hold his future in his hands. One moment of compassion, one life-changing twist. Stay with us till the end, because this story proves that kindness always comes back when you least expect it. If you believe in powerful real-life stories like this, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others, and comment your thoughts below. Let's get started. Daniel woke before sunrise, the kind of hour when silence feels heavier than noise. The small room smelled of old paint and instant coffee, and the ceiling fan creaked like it was tired of spinning. He sat on the edge of the bed, rubbing his hands together to fight the cold, his eyes drifting toward the corner where his son's school bag rested. Every morning reminded him why he couldn't afford to break. Life had already taken too much from him, and he refused to let it take his dignity too. He stepped outside, locking the door carefully as if the fragile house might fall apart without his attention. The street was empty, lined with dull streetlights and forgotten dreams. Daniel walked with long, practiced strides, carrying tools in a faded backpack. Each step echoed his thoughts about the court case looming ahead, the accusation that clung to his name despite his innocence. He had made mistakes, yes, but never crimes worthy of losing his son. That fear stayed with him like a shadow. The road stretched endlessly ahead, gray asphalt cutting through fields dusted with frost. That was when he noticed the car on the shoulder, hazard lights blinking weakly like a call for help no one answered. He slowed, instincts fighting caution. Trouble had already found him once, and he couldn't afford more. But then he saw them, two small figures standing too close to the road, clutching each other's hands, fear written plainly on their faces. He stopped without another thought. Approaching carefully, Daniel softened his voice, speaking slowly, the way he spoke to his son when nightmares struck. The twins explained in broken sentences what had happened, their words overlapping, their confidence fading with every passing minute. He listened patiently, nodding, grounding them with calm eye contact. He offered his scarf, kneeling to their level so they wouldn't feel small. In that moment, he wasn't a poor laborer or an accused man. He was simply an adult who wouldn't abandon them. Daniel inspected the car with practiced eyes, fingers stiff from cold as he lifted the hood. Years of fixing broken things out of necessity guided him now. He found the problem quickly, improvising with limited tools and stubborn determination. The girls watched closely, curiosity replacing fear. They asked about his life, and he answered honestly but gently, speaking of his son with quiet pride. For a brief time, the weight of his own troubles loosened its grip on his chest. When the engine finally settled into a steady rhythm, Daniel exhaled deeply. Relief flickered across the twins' faces, but he didn't leave them there. He knew how fragile safety could be. He walked them to a nearby diner, the warmth wrapping around them like a promise. He spent his last few bills on hot chocolate and a simple meal, ignoring his own hunger. Their laughter filled the booth, and Daniel felt something unfamiliar, hope without conditions. When the girls were reunited with their driver, gratitude spilled out in rushed words and trembling hands. Money was offered, but Daniel refused, stepping back as if insulted by the idea. The twins hugged him tightly, their small arms reminding him of Noah. As he walked away, he didn't look back, unaware that this ordinary act would soon cross paths with a courtroom, a judge, and a fate already hanging in the balance. Days later, Daniel sat on a hard wooden bench outside the courtroom, his hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had turned pale. Every sound echoed too loudly in the hallway, every passing stranger felt like a reminder of how easily a life could be judged and discarded. His thoughts stayed fixed on his son, imagining Noah's face if he didn't come home that evening. That fear pressed against his chest harder than any accusation written on paper. When Daniel's name was called, he stood slowly, legs heavy but resolve intact. Inside the courtroom, the air felt colder, sharper. He took his place, eyes lowered, listening as the charges were read aloud. Each word sounded heavier than the last. He didn't argue or interrupt. He waited, trusting that truth, even when quiet, had its own strength. Still, doubt gnawed at him, whispering that honesty wasn't always enough. The judge entered, commanding the room without raising his voice. Daniel barely glanced up, unaware of the careful eyes studying him from the bench. As the proceedings began, evidence was presented, facts laid out with clinical precision. Daniel spoke only when addressed, explaining his actions, admitting his mistakes, and drawing a clear line between error and intent. He spoke of working endless hours, of raising his son alone, not as an excuse but as context. What Daniel did not see was the judge's attention sharpen with every word. A memory lingered in his mind, a story his daughters had shared days earlier about a stranger on a frozen roadside. The description matched too closely to ignore. The judge watched Daniel's posture, his tone, the absence of rehearsed desperation. This was not a man playing a role. This was someone accustomed to carrying weight without complaint. During a brief recess, the judge requested additional background information. Records showed no pattern of harm, only hardship. Community notes hinted at quiet reliability, at favors done without recognition. When court resumed, the room sensed a shift, though no one could name it. The judge addressed the law with firmness, acknowledging its boundaries, but he also spoke about responsibility paired with discernment. Justice, he reminded them, was not blind to character. The verdict unfolded slowly, each sentence measured. The most severe charges were dismissed, the remainder reshaped into accountability rather than destruction. Daniel heard the words but struggled to process them. Probation, community service, a chance to remain with his son. His breath caught, vision blurring as relief surged through him. He nodded repeatedly, unable to speak, overwhelmed by gratitude he didn't yet understand. As the gavel struck, the courtroom began to empty, but Daniel remained still for a moment, steadying himself. When he finally turned to leave, his eyes met the judge's briefly. In that silent exchange, Daniel sensed something unspoken, a recognition deeper than coincidence. He left without answers, carrying only the gift of a second chance. Weeks later, a letter arrived at Daniel's door, written in careful, deliberate handwriting. It was from the judge, no titles attached, only one father addressing another. He thanked Daniel for protecting his daughters, for showing them courage without condition. Enclosed were resources, a job referral, and guidance to rebuild what had nearly been taken. Daniel folded the letter with shaking hands, tears falling freely as his son hugged him. Life did not transform overnight, but it moved forward. Work became steadier, sleep came easier, and hope no longer felt like a dangerous thing. Daniel taught his son the lesson that had saved them both, that kindness is never wasted, even when no one seems to be watching. Somewhere beyond his small world, two girls remembered a man who stopped when he didn't have to, and justice found its way home.